The Travelling Wilburys. Roy Orbison had one of the finest voices in rock and roll, clear and sharp, melodious and pure. He was also a great and original songwriter. He had not been massively successful since the 60s, but he had recorded the song I Drove All Night with U2, which had put him back in the public eye. So I was quite surprised when he teamed up with the four whiniest singers in rock and roll. I was never a fan of ELO after Roy Wood left, but I did admire Jeff Lynne. At the start of the 70s, George Harrison may well have been the #1 rock star in the world. Tom Petty made some of my favourite music of the late 70s and early 80s. Harrison, Petty and Lynne all had a certain Dylan-esque quality to their singing. That made it even more surprising when they teamed up with the real Bob Dylan. Orbison, Petty, Harrison, Lynne and Dylan became the Travelling Wilburys. Apparently a Wilbury is a recording error, as in we'll bury it in the mix. The biggest surprise was that they released such a good album. Supergroups are notorious for underperforming, usually because each of the members saved their best material for solo projects. But the first single by the Wilburys remains to this day a classic, Handle Me With Care. It was apparently going to be a George Harrison B-side, yet it has to be one of his most memorable songs. It is one of the songs where all the singers got a go at being lead. The same is true of the other big song from this album, End of the Line, which is also extremely good. And there is plenty on the album that is as good, if not better, than each of the members was doing separately at the time. The standard criticism of Bob Dylan is that he cannot sing, yet to me this album seems to see him at a peak, with his voice stronger than his younger voice, and not yet showing signs of ageing. At the time of this album, this was almost certainly the best thing he was doing. I would have expected it to be more Crosby, Stills and Nash, Laurel County, LA Sunshine folky strumming, but the default sound seems to be more rockabilly. In places swampy and in other places Bo Diddley with sequenced synths. There are horn riffs, sax solos, Harrison's slide guitar, and a maddeningly catchy number that might be an attempt at calypso or even highlife. The backing vocals are glorious, never unnecessarily repeating words, but always singing perfectly harmonious oohs and ahs. It should be remembered that Harrison did some of his best work singing in the background, with his Liverpudlian mates. The Orbison-led track is classic Orbison, and would sit well in any Orbison best-of package. The Jeff Lynne-led track reminded me a bit of the rock and roll nostalgia in the latter days of The Move, before the brummy wannabe California man became a real California man. They made another album after Orbison died, and they called it Volume 3. These were performers who could afford to play such jokes. Travelling Wilburys.